Elizabeth Tudor, crowned Queen of England in 1558, ruled for over 40 years, and became one of the most powerful women in European history. But behind the image of Gloriana, behind the portraits, the pageantry, and the poetry, lies a figure wrapped in rumor, fear, and legend. This is not the story of Elizabeth the monarch. This is the story of the myths that followed Elizabeth I, during her life, and long after her death. Elizabeth never married. To her subjects, this was not merely a personal choice, it was a mystery that defined her entire reign. Some believed she was truly chaste, a virgin queen married only to England itself, a powerful symbol of national purity and devotion. Others, however, whispered darker explanations in the shadowed corners of the court. Was she physically incapable of bearing children? Had some secret illness, injury, or trauma rendered her unable to fulfill the biological duty of a queen? The courtiers speculated constantly. Foreign ambassadors filled their reports back home with every scrap of gossip, every rumored detail of her private life. They wrote of secret deformities, of a body unfit for a royal marriage bed, and through it all, Elizabeth allowed the mystery to grow. She knew that in her world, a world where a woman's power was constantly questioned, mystery was a form of power. By remaining an enigma, she kept everyone guessing, ensuring no single faction could control her through marriage. The unanswered question of her virginity became one of her greatest political tools. But one name followed Elizabeth throughout her life, a constant whisper that threatened to unravel her carefully constructed image: Robert Dudley. Their closeness shocked the court. He was the master of the horse, a position that gave him unparalleled daily access to the Queen. They had known each other since childhood, surviving the treacherous politics of her family together. Their intimacy was public, their flirtations bold. He was the one person who seemed to see the woman behind the crown, and she, in turn, seemed to let her guard down around him. Their relationship fueled endless scandal. Was he her lover? The question hung in the air of every royal residence. The scandal exploded when Dudley's wife, Amy Robsart, was found dead at the bottom of a staircase. She had a broken neck. The official verdict was an accident, but few believed it. Had Dudley arranged his wife's murder to free himself to marry the Queen, or even more shockingly, had Elizabeth herself been involved? The whispers turned to accusations. The scandal was so immense it made a marriage between them impossible, even if they had wanted it. The cloud of suspicion would hang over Dudley for the rest of his life. So, what was the truth of their bond? Did Elizabeth truly love him, a forbidden, passionate love that could never be realized? Or was it something else? A deep, complicated friendship forged in shared trauma and political ambition, a bond that was perhaps even tighter than affection ever could be. We will never know for sure, but the ghost of Robert Dudley and his dead wife would haunt the legend of the Virgin Queen forever. Elizabeth did not simply rule England. Her image was meticulously crafted, managed, and controlled. As she aged, she and her advisors launched one of the most successful propaganda campaigns in history, creating the cult of glory. This wasn't just about politics, it was about transforming a mortal woman into a divine symbol. Artists were given specific instructions, licensed patterns for her face that were not to be deviated from. In these official portraits, she is eternally youthful. Wrinkles were forbidden, erased from the canvas. Any signs of aging were smoothed away. The Queen became a symbol, untouched by time, desire, or decay. She was Astrea, the virgin goddess of justice returned to earth. She was the moon, cold, chaste, and powerful, controlling the tides of the nation. Poets like Edmund Spenser wrote epic allegories, casting her as the fairy queen, a mythical figure of virtue and power. This image was plastered everywhere, from paintings to woodcuts to coins, reinforcing the idea that her rule was not just a political reality, but a divine state of being. But when a ruler must pretend to be immortal, what happens when the illusion begins to crack? Behind the closed doors of the palace, the reality was starkly different. The Queen was aging, her teeth were blackened and falling out, her body grew frail. She wore thick white makeup, a lead-based concoction, to mask the scars of smallpox and the wrinkles of age. The contrast between the immortal icon and the aging woman became a source of deep anxiety for the court and the country. As Elizabeth aged, the legends surrounding her grew darker, more desperate, and some claimed she was hiding something far more disturbing than wrinkles. A chilling theory began to circulate, one so audacious it threatened to undermine the very foundation of her reign. This was the Bisley Boy legend. The story goes that during her childhood, the young Princess Elizabeth was sent to the village of Bisley in the Cotswolds to escape an outbreak of the plague in London. While there, the unthinkable happened. The princess fell ill and died. Her governess, terrified of the king's wrath, frantically searched for a replacement, but there were no young girls in the village who resembled Elizabeth. So, in desperation, she found a local boy, a childhood friend of the princess, who looked remarkably like her. This boy was dressed in Elizabeth's clothes and presented as the living princess when the king's men arrived. The deception worked, and so, the legend claims, this boy grew up to become the Queen of England. Proponents of this theory point to so-called clues: her refusal to marry, her fierce intellect and manly courage, her supposed inability to have children. They even point to a strange local tradition in Bisley, where a boy is dressed as a queen for a May Day procession. Is it just a bizarre folktale, a piece of slander cooked up by her enemies, or could it explain the unexplainable? The idea that the powerful Queen Elizabeth, the icon of female power, was secretly a man in disguise is a shocking one. While historians dismiss it as pure fantasy, the legend persists, a testament to the sheer disbelief that a woman could rule so effectively, so powerfully, on her own. It speaks volumes about the world she lived in, and the lengths people would go to explain her extraordinary success. The final years of Elizabeth's reign were marked by a grim and paranoid atmosphere. The cult of youth she had so carefully built now seemed like a cruel joke. The woman who had defeated the Spanish Armada and held England together for over 4 decades was now a shadow of her former self, clinging to power with a desperate grip. Her beloved Robert Dudley was long dead. Her court was filled with a new generation of ambitious young men who saw her as an obstacle to be managed rather than a queen to be revered. She refused to name a successor, plunging the kingdom into a state of uncertainty and fear about the future. What would happen when the immortal Gloriana finally died? In her last days, she reportedly fell into a deep melancholy. She refused to go to bed, standing for hours, convinced that if she lay down, she would never get up again. She held a finger in her mouth for days on end, silent, lost in her own thoughts. Some whispered she was haunted, seeing the ghost of her own frail body in the mirror. When she finally passed away in 1603, the Tudor dynasty died with her, but the myths did not. The Virgin Queen, the forbidden lover, the immortal icon, the boy in disguise, these stories lived on, growing with each retelling. Elizabeth I was a master of image and mystery, and in the end, she became her own greatest creation, a figure so powerful, so enigmatic, that even 400 years later, we are still trying to unravel the woman behind the legend. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the shadows of history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.